It's up in your dome. It's up in your dome. Bring that shit.
Hello and welcome to Digging at the Dome. At Digging at the Dome, we pride ourselves on having a diverse group of guests ranging from musicians who have played in stadiums, internationally known headlining comedians of both TV and film, and super talented people with interesting stories. And I definitely say that this guest here qualifies in that last category. Laine Hilton has had a very interesting life in a profession that not many of us have the desire nor the equipment to excel in. Corey was a male exotic dancer in both in Canada and the United States. He's moving and transitioning into, I guess, more competition for me, podcast host. Thanks a lot. But he's also, he's a coach. And we're definitely going to talk to him a little bit about how he's helping motivate people. He's overcome a lot in his life, and very interested to talk to him. His book, Take It Off, Revelations of a Male Exotic Dancer, can be found on Amazon, Google Books, Barnes & Noble, and pretty much anywhere you can get books. Corey Hilton, welcome to Digging in the Dome.
Chris, man, thank you so much for having me on. I've actually listened to a few of your podcasts, and you are absolutely right when you're talking about your guest lineup. And I really, really just, man, I appreciate you even putting me in that light, to be completely straightforward, because I've always been somebody that's been tries to be humble in a very, very unique industry and of a lot of egotism, I guess you could say. So I never really wanted to be that guy, but when you put it that way, I appreciate that intro in a big way. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. Listen, listen. If only we all had as interesting a life as you, we would have lots of stories to tell. So I kid in that I said that, oh, you're starting a podcast too. I don't want to start a radio war. Kidding. But realistically, you deserve to have one. Like the things that you've gone through in life, and I'm definitely interested in getting into that. I am going to be 100% honest with you. If you would have asked me, hey, Chris, who is the first exotic dancer you having on the show? A male would not have been the answer, okay. But that's okay. I'm really glad that you're here because you have a very interesting story. So, I'd like to start with, we're going to Tarantino this. We're going to work backwards from where you're at right now. Let's start with where you are today. So, talk to me a little bit about what you're up to. So let's talk about your podcast. What is your podcast called, and what is it about?
Yeah, it's just coming off the ground. I'm only opening one garage door at a time right now, Chris, to be straightforward. Otherwise, I get diluted. I really try my best to make sure that I stay on one. So it's going to be called Take It Off. It's just going to be right on my branding as well. And I have a co-host by the name of Natasha, who's actually wrote a book as well here recently. It's going to be launching in the next couple of weeks. And she's actually a former stroke survivor, actually, who,
oh, wow.
Believe it or not, at only 31 years old, had a stroke. And she's 33 now and not only written an amazing book, but runs a spa. And she's really just a really driven, really motivated person. Has a really good personality that I gel really well with. So we both have our struggles, just like anybody does out there. And so we don't put ourselves on any pedestal whatsoever when it comes down to it. These are relatable struggles that anybody actually can understand out there. But at the same time, we just both have a different lens to see things through. So for her, obviously, time is of the essence when you've almost lost your life, when you've been paralyzed. For sure. She was blind for a little while. She was paralyzed. She still doesn't even have feeling on one side of her body. I mean, there's aspects of that where when you've had that kind of an intense thing happen to you, well, of course, you don't want people wasting your time, right? Because it's not guaranteed.
Right. Yeah. We actually had a guy, I'm not sure if this is going back a while, and this is one of the first YouTube shows that we had actually recorded is probably about 2 months into doing YouTube. We had David Paris. He was he's an author as well. And he was a finalist on America's Got Talent. And he had suffered, he got COVID and it put him in a coma for 3 months, and it changed his life. So it is these moments you have to, the life is precious, to your point. And I think that it's great that, she's recovering, and she's, again, I think it puts things into perspective for sure.
100%. And this is exactly what I was trying to get to, really, when it comes down to understanding other people's perspectives. Because when it comes down to it, people look at you in one light, but you don't look at yourself in that light a lot of the time, right? Like we've all heard you're your own worst judge, right? Well, even when I was on stage, even when I was in a status position, when I was rubbing shoulders with all the MTV folks, when I was working at this large beach club, or even when I won my contests and stuff like that, I never really saw myself the way that other people saw me. So I was just somebody that had a lot of lack built into him, a lot of unworthiness built into him, and really a lot of emotional disconnection. And so I didn't even understand or realize that I had these issues while I was actually doing my former career. I hid behind my alter ego really in a lot of ways. And so not only did I have a different dance name, but
what was your cool dance name? I got to know that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's a little story behind that, Chris.
Sure.
I had a different dance name here in Canada than I did in the US. I spent half my career in Canada. Now, my career did span from the age of 17 until 43 years old. Wow. So we're looking at 25 years. Whoa. Yeah, man, it's just insane. I look back and I think to myself, did that really happen? But, but at the same time, the reality is that it wasn't, there's a big difference between dancing as a male in Canada and dancing as a male in the States. There's a big difference between female dancers and male dancers. So as much as you would love to have had a female dancer on, your podcast,
of course I was just
no. I know that, but I was just going to say it would be a different conversation. It would be a different conversation because it's not even apples and oranges, man.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about the differences between, let's start with Canadian dancing and then dancing in the United States. What were the differences there?
Well, first off, here in Canada, we went full Monty, so full nude, right? And so I'll go ahead and maybe I'll just say to your audience right now, if you have kids in the car or whatever, you might want to like plug their ears or turn down the volume a couple notches for this part, because I always want to put that warning out. But as a male dancer in Canada, a lot of people don't understand what we as guys had to go through to perform. Now you think, oh yeah, a guy just has to go out there on stage, he dances around a little bit, collects his tips, blah, 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 and leaves stage. But that's not the way it rolled here. So basically when I joined my agency here, and this was in the heyday of dancing now, we're talking late 80s, like it was still really popular. This is a foregone industry. I mean, it's barely even existent anymore.
Really? Yeah.
Really, COVID really put a big
really put yes, for sure.
Yeah, right. But back then, like, here I was a young guy. I was like 23 years old at the time when I went into the full nude industry. I started off as a topless waiter, believe it or not, at 17 years old while I was going to high school. Now,
was this in the place like at a, I'm assuming it's got to be like at a club, a dancing club. Okay.
Yeah,
so you started there. Okay.
Yeah, I started off actually in the #1 ladies' night in British Columbia, Canada, back in 1987, I believe it was. And so that being said, I got kind of like, I didn't get exploited in any way. I actually found my way in through a friend, and it was there's a bit of a story behind that. But the bottom line is for my first little while there, I wasn't doing full nude or anything. I was just actually a topless waiter serving drinks with no shirt off, kind of Chippendale style sort of stuff.
Yeah, like a little bow tie, maybe a little.
Yeah, right. So it was just kind of an ideal thing for a young guy in high school. Like my grandparents who raised me, they were like, you know what, man, if he doesn't get messed up on drugs and he's not like skipping or screwing up his grades, let the kid do what he wants to do. And I owned up to my end. So it basically, to make a long story kind of condensed with that is that I went through some interesting times when I was that young man going into the scene, because I wasn't that type of guy that even saw myself in that type of a role. In fact, it was one of my biggest fears as a kid, being exposed.
That's what I'm going to ask. Like, that's got to be crazy. Like, to think about, like, now I have to, so taking off your shirt's one thing, because you go to the beach, I'm sure, like that's like a normal thing. Like, I shouldn't, you're in maybe in locker rooms, stuff like that. That's not something that would be terrifying pretty much to anybody, I don't think. Like, unless there's some people that don't want to have their shirt off, like they don't have a body for it, and it's understandable. But, if you're in especially a young guy, relatively in shape guy, or really in shape guy, having your shirt off, no big deal. But then the second that the rest of it comes off, that has got to be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, man. Like I remember the first time I saw like an actual male dancer actually do a show. Like, I'm not talking about the topless waiter, but the actual stripper.
The whole.
And I remember I said to one of my buddies, I looked at him, I said, "There's just no way in hell I can do that." Like, I was just like, "There's just no way." Right. And so but the crazy part is that I actually through working at that club, I ran into a lot of other male dancers. There was, in fact, 4 that used to rotate every ladies' night. So I would meet so many of these guys that worked this circuit through this one agency here at the time. And at that time, again, like they were like superstars, right? Like it was just crazy the way this ladies' night was at that time.
Yeah,
and
sure.
it had a club that was split into 2 sides. So there was men on one side, women on the other.
No kidding.
So, yeah. Okay. So you actually had like strippers of both genders on both sides, right?
That's not really a common thing in America though, right? Like usually they kind of like have just like their own, like there's one club for the dudes and then there's one club for the ladies.
Yeah. So that kind of was just like, I walked right in at 17 years old. You could only imagine like you're walking into this ladies' night scene and it's mayhem on one side. And then the guys are all chill on the other side watching like a couple girls do a duo act on the floor. Right. So I'm like sitting there going like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Yeah. And so it just ended up really what it ended up happening was I, in fact, met up with the #1 male exotic dancer in all of Canada. He was like the Elvis of stripping back then. Like the guy was just chiseled, rock hard body, like wicked build, like and I mean, he hung like a horse the whole 9 yards. He could spin on a freaking dime, man. Like it was just ridiculous, right?
Helicopter, so, good for him.
Yeah, right. So I looked up to him a lot, and I said to him one time we were chit chatting, and he really, the reason why I really looked up to him wasn't what he did on stage, was what he did off stage. So like when he was actually conversing with the ladies, he actually treated everybody with class. He had a British accent, just kind of, he had all the things, helps. Right?
Well, that definitely helped. That British accent, any kind of an accent really does help, doesn't it?
Right? So yeah, so he dressed well and all that. Like he just represented himself so well. So he started chatting with me. He said, Corey, man, he goes, do you really think that you couldn't do what I do? And I was like, man, I'm like, look, come on. Right. And he was like, you got everything that I got and more. Like, he's like, all you have to do is listen to what I have to say. I'll bring you into the industry. I'll help you, whatever it takes to get in.
Took you under his wing.
That's awesome. Man. So now we're back full circle to the name. So what happened was this. We were sitting there, and at that time, not only was I working as a male, I should say waiter on ladies' nights, but I was also on Friday and Saturday nights. I decided to start working the door and being a bouncer. So I was kind of working like 4 nights a week now as this young guy. As a bouncer, IDing people to get in the bar when I was already underage myself. So I was only 18 and I'm IDing people to make, it was just crazy talking to the police officer standing next to me, asking me how his night is and all that. So it was just this really wild, really crazy kind of thing for a young guy to be involved in. Mm-hmm. So since I was a bouncer, he said to me, he goes, Corey, what's your favorite movie? And at that time it was Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze. Roadhouse all the way. Like I was just like, man, that was the shit. Yeah, right. Like big time. So he said, what's the main character's name? And I said, yeah, it's Dalton. He's like, okay, cool. And he goes, well, you're a big guy. And I was pretty big at that time. He goes, well, he says, we got to give you a powerful name. And he thought for a couple seconds. He goes, Strong. Let's go with Strong. So it was like, okay, Dalton Strong. So within like
fantastic.
10 minutes,
Roadhouse and Strong, dude.
Yeah, right.
How you could not come? Like, that's a fantastic name. That was the first one you landed on. You didn't have any like.
Oh man, it was just I swear, Chris. Within 10 minutes after this original conversation, we had a name created. Within a week, we had an act created. So and he said to me, he was like, okay, let's do the movie theme. He's like, what's one of your favorite movies? I was like, at that time, I was like, oh man, Terminator 2. It was like Terminator, love some Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, no way.
So he says, okay, let's do a Terminator act. So we put it together. And this is the funny thing is that I was actually the one that did the voiceover for my Terminator act. So I actually got on there and tried to be my best Arnold and put it onto the tape, right? So when I was coming out to do my act, not only was it weird going out to actually strip for women, but I was actually lip syncing my own voice doing Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is really, really whacked.
That is really weird. Did you have to practice that a whole lot? You had to have all right, mess it up.
I was like, it did not work out. It's not fantastic at all. So I just moved along. Right? So it was just funny, right? So we did that. And then, so that was like kind of my first act, right? And then like, it just kind of progressed from there. And the one thing that I'll say, I think that I really stayed in the industry for as long as I did. And the reason why I kind of did was I always wanted to bring an emotional rise out of people. Like I always tried to get emotions out of people. Yeah. So through my creativity, I did that. And sometimes my creativity was so awesome where I was like, oh my God, just hit a home run out of the park. And then there was other times when my creativity was pure shit and I should have stuck to the YMCA act, So
look, it's a pretty common thing. So because like I said to you, like we interview a lot of musicians and comedians and people that are on the stage all the time. Right. So the stories that they tell are really, they range. Right. So we had a guy from Candlebox, the guitarist from Candlebox was on. They're fantastic. And he was talking about like how, the difference, the really essentially the dichotomy between going out to he's like, okay, I got a gig. And cause he's a very humble guy, Brian. He would always go to, and do like local gigs all the time, regardless of how big he got. He said, I always want to stay close to people, and it helps him continue to like, craft his skills and stuff like that. Keep the chops up when he's not touring. So he's like, yeah, I'm in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania, playing in front of like 15 people, like plates are scraping, glasses are breaking. Then I get on a plane and go and play in front of 20,000, or so be the comedian. Actually, it's pretty funny. Like most comedians will have gone in here and independent of like talking to they didn't like necessarily watch all of our episodes where we're talking to comedians, would say, oh, the worst gigs I've ever had are at a golf club. So comedians, if you're out there, stay away from golf clubs. Apparently you're going to bomb there no matter what you do. So it's interesting. You just have those on nights and those off nights, and you got to roll with the punches, right?
Dude, you know what I love about stand-up comedians, though? The one thing that I really like, I mean, obviously, I'm an old fan of like Eddie Murphy, the good old ones, Richard Pryor and all those back in the day, right? I'm a 51-year-old guy, so I remember all that shit. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that it's kind of like, what I really admire about them is they walk right in and they're like wide open to failure. Because if you bomb, right? If you bomb, okay, like it's going to suck taking the hit. But you're going to learn something from it, right? Oh, yeah. And so I have a couple of my stand-up buddies that I'm just like, I admire them so much for having the balls to go out there and do that.
Dude,
like
go up there, eat it, like just silence and like nothing. It's even like I think that if you go up there and you get booed, okay, at least I invoked, to your point, I evoked an emotion out of somebody. They're not happy with what I'm doing. But if you just sit up there and you're sitting there and like literally you're talking and you just hear like cough in the background, flop sweat will just start pouring off. You're like, oh God, get me out of here. Where's the light?
No, man. And I mean, I admit though, like with what I was doing, it was kind of like, I guess you could say like, I didn't really have that same type of risk, because it was like, for ladies' night in general, like, I mean, I'll be straight up. Like I really did do well with my career. I'm not saying that I was the best, but I did pretty well with it. But I knew guys that came into the industry that shouldn't even have been on stage at times, right? Like, and I'm not downgrading anybody.
What do you mean by that?
Shouldn't be judging.
Why were they
just saying like maybe they were like so like didn't have any dance moves whatsoever?
Oh, their skill,
the body for it, like nothing, right? But still were accepted by the ladies' night crowd, because women are just like, hey, baby, they're just out there to have a good time, right?
Right? They're having fun.
Yeah, they're not judgmental. They're not criticism. They're not really critical. Like, I'm not going to stereotype all women as being that way, but I'm just saying when it comes down to it, they're a lot more giving in comparison to the other side of the coin. When you got a female dancer that's up there dealing with the male mentality, where you got the guy with his beer gut sitting there in the front row looking up at some girl going, she should have a better ass, or she should wear a better costume. Maybe her dance music sucks, right? And he'll sit there and criticize the hell out of her without even taking any accountability for his own ass, right? Whereas women are a little different with that, right? So I was kind of it's kind of a cool industry.
You mentioned dance skills. So like, it kind of like begged the question to kind of go backwards a little bit. Sure. Like, was that something that you like, so as an example, David Paris, the guy that we had on previously from America's Got Talent, he was a dancer and an acrobat. So like, that was like his skill set. So, and like he had that's been something he had been into forever. He was a salsa dancer, and like I said, an acrobat. So like something that he was into, like, is that something dancing? Was that something that you were into at a very young age, or something you just got into?
Man. Not at all. I'm going to give you the ancient Chinese secret here. Actually, over my entire 25-year career, I think I only had about 5 dance moves. I just changed them up and put a different accent on them every time. Like I cheated my way through that. And I really, when it came down to it, like I just got really creative with acts, man. Like, when I would say that when I was really good was when I put my own personal pain into an act, or I put my own personal touch into it as far as comedy went or something, just being something different, right? Like I was always just that type of person that wanted to just I didn't want to be that typical YMCA dancer, the cop, the construction worker. I did it, right? But I'm just saying it's not something that really made me just have goosebumps. So when I would go out on stage, right? Like, yeah, I had the fear like anybody does. Like you're going to have a bit of that if you don't, you're really, I guess you could say, not in the right place, because you should feel a little bit of that. But I learned to flick that switch off and just go for it when I walked out. As soon as I took the first step, I was like, okay, now switched off the old guy. Like you're the totally alter ego on. Now let's go out there and rip it. Right. So, and then I didn't really believe in my whole time when I was dancing that I even took that alter ego off stage with me. But I unfortunately had to learn that lesson the hard way through my relationships a few times where I did take it off stage.
Well, so would you say like just because I can imagine too, like, so there's, because just for context, if my co-host was here, but he's busy, like I said, doing baby stuff and moving, unpacking boxes. We were both in a band together for, I've known him since my whole life, but we've been in bands. I've been in bands since I was like 18 years old. And, that's like, we're talking now, 28 years or 27 years. So, and he and I were in a band together for 17 of those years. And so we played all over the place. We played at CBGBs. We played all up down the coast, across the country, played a lot of different cool venues and stuff like that. And it very much is like, so you're off stage, you're kind of like getting yourself mentally prepared. And then you have to go into showman mode, right? I'm going in there and then I gotta be in the moment. I have to, do that. So it's interesting, because you do, like, when you come off stage, turning it off, it's not like a switch. So I can imagine for you, especially because you're getting a lot of adulation. People are, catcalling you and throwing money at you and stuff like that. It's gotta it's the amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Like the good feeling that you get, like the emboldening, feeling that you get must have been really a crazy high. So like, is that kind of what you're saying? Is like, you're carrying Dalton Strong out into your real life?
To a certain degree, Chris. What I mean by that more so is especially when I got to Florida. Like when I got to Florida, I didn't go under my Dalton Strong name anymore. I went under my real name, which is Corey Laine, or my middle name. And when I was down there, it wasn't about just being on stage. It was about really during the day, being out of the pool deck, attracting girls to come inside the club for ladies' night. So I was paid to party, man. Right. Like, it was like you'd be the toughest thing that I had to do was learn choreography and stay in good shape in the gym. From there, it was kind of like, man, the club closed at 4:00, and a lot of time we'd still be ripping it, watching the sunrise on the beach, right? Like it was just nonstop, 24 hours being paid to party. So it was like, man, there's just a lot of, as crazy as it was, I got stressed out from partying too much after a while. Yeah, sure. And it was just kind of like, and so when you go into that zone of just like, it all kind of blends together. Yeah. And so I ended up kind of, like I said, regretfully bringing some of my own ego into my own marriage and into some of my relationships where there was failures that came into play with that, from looking up to somebody too much or looking down at somebody too much, never really looking people in the eye, right? So there's just an element of that where I really express it a lot in my book, because my book is really based a lot off relationships and memories, because to me that's kind of what life's all about. So for me it was just kind of like I really wanted to show people that it's more than just a biography about a bunch of stripper stories. Like there's literally there's core values there that were degraded in a lot of ways, stripping away from my authenticity, that I really clarify. And so my goal really is to help out my 30-year-old self, like the person that struggled with all that shit, right? Like there's a lot of guys out there that can relate to what I'm talking about. They just might not see it through my lens. So, but if I can back up a second, I was going to mention to you a little bit about like that whole difference between the Canadian dancers and the
we were talking about that in the United States.
Because we were kind of in that kind of straight off. So unfortunately, I get into that zone sometimes. That's okay. Talking about look, crazy career.
This is very common in this podcast where we go down multiple different roads. We just take it where it goes. It's okay. So but I'm very interested in that. So we've already established two differences. First one was we're birthday suit compliant, right? This is I'm completely nude. That's number one. Second thing is the idea of the 8th grade dance strip club where all the men are on one side and all the women are on the other side. So you got that. So tell me more.
Yeah, man. Well, so like when you're going nude here in Canada, like a lot of people don't realize though, like that there's a really, I guess you could say, I'm very vulnerable when I talk about this, because it's something that a lot of people just can't even comprehend. So when we went nude here, like we were required to make ourselves look bigger, so to speak, down there. What we have to do before a show is we would go back to our change room. Now that change room could be literally a squared off curtain on the side of the stage while a guy is actually dancing right beside you in the middle of ladies' night. Or it could be maybe a bathroom in the back by where all the empty beer bottles are. Or if you're really lucky, it might even be your bathroom in your freaking hotel room. Right. And if you got that luxury, then you were in good, because what we had to do is we'd have to go back in the change room just after we put our costume on, get an erection, tie an elastic band around the base of our and basically hold all the blood in there for the entire time that you're doing the show. So sometimes you do like a 15-20 minute show. And it was painful when you pulled that thing off. I'm not going to deny it. It's like when you wrap your finger up a few times with the string and you pull it off. Purple and feel it. Yeah. Same sort of damn thing, right? Yeah. So fortunately, through 25 years, I didn't do it completely through my entire career. When I went to the States, I didn't have to do that anymore. But for the first 10 years, yes, I did. And so I had a lot of interesting experiences, whether it would be, working in Winnipeg, Canada, or maybe in Vancouver. There's a big difference. So Vancouver, I might have 1, maybe 2 shows a night at the most that I'd have to do. Winnipeg, on the other hand, I might have to do 5 or 6 in a night. So you could imagine it's minus 30 degrees. You're in a freaking car with your driver that's been driving you around for a few weeks, and you're in the back of the car with your costume on, getting ready for the next show. And
you're like
looking. Yeah, he's not even looking in the rearview mirror. He's just looking straight forward, going, "Hey, I hope everything works out for you, buddy."
Good luck, buddy.
So, yeah, right. So that was kind of what it was, and I can't even tell you the intense pressure that raises in you when you're just trying. Even imagine being in like I said, like a squared curtain on the side of a stage, right in the middle of a ladies' night, and you got a chair there, and you're just sitting there with your head trying to think in your mind how to get an erection in this situation, right? So there's a lot of mind control and trying to just kind of keep that straight in your head, right? So
that's crazy. And you didn't even have like the benefit of like all the Blue Chews and the Viagras and all that kind of stuff that they've got today.
That wasn't
People are cheating. This man knows how to get an erection. That's what I say.
Yeah, right. But here's the crazy part, Chris. This is where it got really nuts, man. Was like when I went to do Mr. Nude Western Canada. This is back in 1997.
Mr. Nude West, it was called?
Western Canada for Western Canada. Okay. Yeah, we did contests back then, and actually, like back then, we had Mr. Nude Western Canada and then Mr. Nude Canada. So I've actually that year won Mr. Nude Western Canada, and then went to play to compete in Mr. Nude Canada and took second there. So, but it was awesome. Kind of it was cool. But at the same time, the Mr. Nude Western Canada story is pretty insane because, like I said, we had to go get tied off and stuff for the show. So you go do that, and then I get tied off, dude, and then all of a sudden, another dancer that was supposed to go on before me, he shows up. And what happened was he was already delayed, and the DJ told me, "Hey man, you need to go get back and get ready." So I'm standing there fully tied off. I'm in my costume ready to go. And this other guy comes walking in, throws his shit at the DJ and says, "Let's go." So he goes out there and does like a 20-minute Prince set while I'm standing there.
No.
Yeah. So he's doing Purple Rain and everything. I can't even listen to Purple Rain the same way anymore. Yeah. And like literally, like I'm talking, like I'm standing there, dude, in my costume, and like I got sweat beating down my forehead. Like before I even go on stage, right? I'm like standing there like, oh fuck. So I go out to do the show. And of course, I do a kick-ass freaking show. But what ends up happening is I got this lineup of girls, and I got 2, maybe 3 encores to do. So by the time I finished my entire shit, everything that I'd done, plus the other guy's time, I'd been tied off for 1 hour and 10 minutes.
For the love of Christ.
And so, I went back into the change room, snipped that thing off, and like it just hit the roof, like with the pain, right?
Oh my God.
Then on top of that, I went completely numb. So I won the contest. I'm standing there and I'm signing autographs for this lineup of girls across the bar. And like a couple of them are saying, hey, baby, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, don't even waste your time.
There's no chance, lady.
Don't even waste your time. Like it's like completely useless. I'll talk to you in 48.
I know.
Like don't even bother.
Oh my God.
So that was just a little story about that. Dude. But then, like I said, man, like I wrote like 100,000 word book because of the fact that over 25 years, I have a shitload of other stories.
Well, those stories. Just, like,
crazy,
this is it. Listen, I know my audience well enough. We got a big audience, a decent sized audience. They're going to read your book just based on that alone. Just to find and follow up. Don't leave don't put the ending out there because they got to get out there. But that's crazy that they made you do that.
Yeah. So that was one thing. But I'll even give you another little tidbit of a story that I haven't really said on many podcasts, but it's just a funny bloody story that I chuckled to myself about a little bit now because the shit you do when you're young sometimes and you gotta laugh at yourself. So I was actually doing a show in a little club called back in the day called Barry T's in Edmonton, Alberta. Of course, cold as hell up there.
Yeah, of course.
And so I ended up doing this gig, and I was actually with a dance review at the time, so it wasn't a tied off show. I wasn't going naked. I was just G-string, right?
Jesus.
So I had this one patented move that I used to do, and it was like this kind of like spin move that I just spin all the way across the stage and then plant my one foot, kick out the other way. It was just something that I always did, right? It was just something easy for me.
It's your signature move.
It was kind of that, yeah, sort of. And so I went out to do it, and this particular night was different because this club actually was set up where the stage was in the round, right? As you know.
Yep.
So it's in the round, and then they basically had like scaffolding material that raised the actual dance floor up 6 feet in the air so that you would actually be eye level with the girls as you did the show, because the dance floor was kind of sunken, right?
Right.
So there's this thing, like this thing is like all this plywood on top of this scaffolding material, and it's just this one big flat stage. So I'm doing this spin move, and I go all the way across the bloody move or across the stage, go to plant my foot, and I miss the edge of the stage about a freaking inch. And
you ate it right off the stage?
No, man, I scraped my ankle down the inside of my leg in a G-string. Literally, like all the way down the inside of my leg, scraped it down, bashed my crotch right on the edge of the stage, and flipped over and ended up down 6 feet laying there. And the whole crowd was like from like freaking out, losing it, to just like dead silent, right?
Yeah, like, no.
Yeah,
is he okay?
Right? Yeah. So my guys in my group came up and they're like, holy shit, did he break his leg? And I was okay. I was just bleeding everywhere.
Did the DJ roll the punches?
Yeah, no, they just
for Dalton, everybody.
They just kept the music rolling, right? It was just kind of like whatever.
Those guys are unflappable, man. They just
the MC
keep
was
on
like,
going. The show must go on.
Yeah, the MC got on there. He's like, it's all right. He's fine. So I got back up on the stage, and it was just the funniest bloody thing. This is why I really vividly remember this. So I'm like literally bleeding down my leg, and I just spread out this blanket on the freaking stage, and I just like laid there, and these girls were all lined up, and they were just like throwing sympathy tips, right? Like they just had like loonies and toonies, the coins up here in Canada. They're just throwing them at the blanket. Like, this poor son of a bitch, he's hurting so bad right now. I wouldn't have tipped him before, but I'm going to tip him now. Right?
Oh yeah, now you're going to get really paid. Like, that was not planned. I swear to God, I did not injure myself on purpose to get paid.
It's just funny when I look back at moments like that, man. As painful as it was, right? It's just so funny. That's
crazy. Right? So we've established a couple things. The 8th grade dance difference. We've established the complete nudity, and now we've also established tying it off, which that is just fucking bananas to me. All right. Is there any other differences really between Canadian male exotic dancing and then the United States?
Just really in the States, a lot of the time it's a lot of dance reviews, right? Like Thunder from Down Under type of guys.
Oh, yeah,
Chippendales,
sure.
Right? Like, it's a lot of dance reviews. You don't see a lot of like solo artists like we were. We were a bunch of freaking ragtag solo artists up here. There's like 60 of us in the agency, and we just kind of get booked all over Canada. You'd find your way there basically, and you got paid for your gas or whatever to get out there, and you do your gig, and it would, you'd have like a bigger base pay because there wasn't as many tips, and it was just one of those things. It was just there's just differences in pay and the way it was structured, right? Mm-hmm. But when I got to the States, that was when my creativity really went on a different level, because when you're working with 5 guys, as you know, even in a band, right? Like, your creativity, it changes because you're bouncing ideas off of other guys. You're working more as a team. There's chemistry there, all that. And that's the one thing I can really relate. That's why I actually contacted you guys, because like, I can really relate to the band thing, although I didn't play any instruments, so to speak. It was kind of that same kind of mentality where you're going, like I said, from club to club. You're all over the friggin' US. Like, I did every club in the whole southeastern US, I believe, right? Like, we were fantastic. All over the place, and it was really cool because like we were kind of I guess you could say almost like such a team. We had each other's backs a lot of the time, and we really had to, right? Because there was so much crazy shit was happening, but I guess all I can say is for me, when I went down there, what really changed is that first off, I was raised by my grandparents here in Canada. Mm-hmm. So I kind of grew up in this, I guess you could say, traditional household where a lot of morality and integrity was represented and stuff. Sure. But they also, unfortunately, due to my family background, as far as my grandfather in particular, he was World War II vet. He was kind of a programmed with no emotion type of person. Like, he had emotion. He was a great man. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is,
he's probably more reserved, like kept it in a little bit.
Yeah, didn't know. It blocked a lot of that stuff, right? Because it's just too much, because he didn't know how to really, I guess you could say, say things. Like, you need to know how to word it.
Get it out.
Yeah. And it was something that I struggled with as well. He passed it down to me, but I don't blame him. That was under my own control. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is that that's where I'm talking about not really addressing the interior shit. Like, I always kind of relied on the exterior and got away with it, and never really did look deeply into that. So that's been a journey of self-discovery. I was going to ask,
what was the trigger for that? So you get, because you mentioned a little bit about like hitting the bottom, right? Like, and like finding, like, because when you hit that, obviously that gives you the similar, like, I'm not making the comparison with your co-host that had the stroke, but like, you have those moments in life where you're just like, okay, I got to change some shit. This is not working. And then you start to do a lot of self-reflection. What was that point for you?
Well, It was a few rock bottoms, actually. Like like I said, man, I could be on here telling you about rock bottoms all day long, to be honest. I mean, it was kind of like my whole life was steak and lobster one day, crap and dinner the next, to a certain degree. But
Right.
what I'm saying is that when it came to like that upbringing that I had, like with the way that my grandfather, his words actually sometimes resonated with me when he wasn't even around, right?
Yeah.
So like so when I left Canada at like 26 years old to go to work in Florida, I got offered a position down there because I just happened to run into this agent who, at the original club that I worked at years before, said, "Hey, Corey, if you ever decide you want to come work for my group, here's my card." Like, he's like, "I hate to even try to invite you down," because he's like, even though you're a really big guy, he's like, "I'm kind of freaked out for you living in the States because you're too nice to live down there. Like, you're just kind of like, you're just really way too good of a dude."
Yeah.
But he was like, "You know what? Here's my card." So 5 years later, I ended up contacting him at 26 and ended up down there. So I left my family, I left my friends, I left everything that I knew.
Mhm.
And when you do that and you move into a different world where nobody's judging you, you're not normalized by anyone anymore. Like, you're not known for the kid.
No, they don't know you. Like,
nobody knows you.
You're
right?
whoever you want to be.
Damn straight. So I go there, and 3 days after I go there, and honestly, Chris, I'd never touched a drug in my life outside of a 6-pack of beer at a party on the weekend when I was in high school.
Right.
But the crazy thing was this, and I'm not here to condone this to your audience. Don't get me wrong.
That's okay. That's all right.
But what I'm just saying is that for an emotionally disconnected person that had a really hard time, because I didn't have a whole lot of love yous and sweeties and honeys in my household when I grew up, when I went down to Florida and somebody said, "Hey, man, try this little ecstasy pill. It'll blow your freaking mind." And I looked at it, I was like, "Yeah, what's that one little pill going to do to me?" And I popped that thing. All of a sudden, a door to emotion opened up inside of me. It was like tasting food for the first time. I ate it all my life, but I just never really tasted it. So I actually tasted that emotion for the first time. And that was a game changer. And I walked right in that door, and it took me to the top at times, and it took me to rock bottom at other times. Yeah. But it never really took me where I wanted to go. It was just a great experience that allowed me to open up a lot, but it didn't really, like I said, I'm not here to condone it. But do I have regrets? No, man, I don't have any regrets.
No, dude, look, you're talking to someone that's been, and we've talked about it in a great detail. Like in bands, like, we've definitely done our share of things. So like, we're not like, we are definitely not a judgmental group here. And look, it's interesting if you look at the way that the view on certain things has changed. Like, marijuana is one thing. Like now, like people using psilocybin and using it medicinally, not using it to abuse it, but using it to actually to help them.
Yes.
There are practical uses for some of these things. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that like to your point, you don't want people to go hog wild, but there are things that it can do for you that, that maybe otherwise you would not have gotten. And it's, it's just, it's life. Right.
And this is the crazy part. I just actually done some research on this recently, because you're right about the psilocybin thing, as far as just basically being able to help out with depression and whatnot. But very interesting thing that I just read on lately, FDA is actually looking at opening it up, is under actually professional circumstances, monitoring it in the right way. Not the party drug, like let's go out and rip it up all night in a rave, but I'm talking about like the pure form of MDMA. They're looking at using it actually now to actually help out people with a PTSD. And I can understand how that would work. I really can understand how that would work.
Yeah. Now, and like it's not meant to abuse it. It's like, but but in controlled environments with people that understand how that works. And again, as science gets better, it's like kind of like the difference. Like we joked about on this podcast before, is like when we were in like college and stuff like that, we'd be spending copious amounts of time trying to pick little seeds out of pot and like sticks and stuff like that, right? Like trying to get to the goodness. But like now it's like you open up a jar and it's like glowing. It's just like perfect. It's like that. It's like that kind of thing, because they figured it out. And again, like you think about some of the uses of some of these things that people have been frowning upon for a long time. Like alcohol, like is rough. Like, like there's, it's dude, for all intents and purposes, it's poison. You're poisoning yourself. I still drink, so it's not like I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying that like comparatively, like the way that the other stuff has been demonized, it's it's not necessarily because it's worse.
Yeah, well, I heard about the devil's lettuce for a lot of years myself, and I live in British Columbia, Canada. So, you're preaching to the choir over here, but I'm just saying, I believe fully it's a gateway drug. It's the gateway out for me. It was a gateway to actually stop me from doing ecstasy for so many years. It actually helped me out a lot, right? But like that's just my perspective, right?
Yep. Yeah. But, no, listen, we're big supporters, so we understand. So, so you have like changed your life. Like so you got out of this industry. You decided not to do this anymore, and there was a point when you said no more. Now we kind of breezed past this, but you did say that you were married. So when did that occur in this whole journey? When did you get married?
Okay, so oddly enough, when I was going through a pretty heavy ecstasy phase, it was like I was really, really hungry for like I said, when you're in this party zone where you just have a shitload of acquaintances and you don't really have anybody, you don't really know who to trust as your real friends, right? Because everybody's looking at your status. They're not really looking at your worth, right? Yeah. And I even made that mistaking status for worth for a while there. But I'm just saying, like, I was actually like really in a zone where I was kind of just really wanting to have some kind of connection with someone. And ironically, I was going through this small town, just actually south of Macon, Georgia, a little place called Warner Robins. And we were doing a show out there, and I'll never forget it. I just walked in, and there was about 500 girls in there waiting for the show to start. And there was this one blonde girl. She was like sitting in the seat, maybe like 4 or 5 rows back from the front. And I just made eye contact with her, and I looked at my buddy Jeff, who was from New York, and I looked at him and I was like, "Oh my God." He was like, "What?" And I said, there's just something about her. I don't know what it is." And it was just kind of weird. And then all of a sudden, I actually was doing my show, and I'd been working probably in the industry for, I would say, I don't know, solid 12 years in the industry at that time. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I was only 28 years old. So maybe 10 years in the industry total. And of course, I'd accepted a lot of tips. And that night I remember doing my gig, and I jumped up on the chair right in front of her, and there's money waving all over the place. And she had her dollar bill up and she was smiling at me. And I just looked at her and I was like, "You're the one. You're the first one." She was like, "What?" And I said, "You're the first one. I don't want your money." I was like, "I just want to know you." And I sat down on the table.
Fucking great. Look at you. All strong. Come with a strong line, doggy.
So I sat down in the chair in my G-string right in front of her. And I was like, there's money waving everywhere. And I was like, "Do me a favor. Just wait till after the show. And I have some Polaroids, pictures that I have to take. But after that, I want to get to know you. I really do." So she did. Wow. So anyways, and it was just kind of oddly enough, we had these shirts that we were sponsored by Budweiser that night. So we were handing out shirts at the end of the show. And at the closer, I threw the shirt out there into the audience, and she was only like 4'10". Wow. And I remember like she came down with that shirt, which is funny. I think she might even still have it.
Like Spud Webb jumping up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, but ironically, we just had a really good connection. We ended up being like one of my best friends in a lot of ways. And it didn't really take that long before we were actually moved in together. She moved to Florida, and I took her out of this world in Georgia of really just kind of backwoods world where she was raised in a pretty shitty environment, and brought her into this crazy MTV party life of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And it was like, all of a sudden we were like just this crazy toxic twins group, just kind of relationship and we were really kind of an odd couple because I was 6'2", she's 4'10", kind of looked like a miniature Pamela Anderson. And we're just kind of like
fantastic.
It was just wild. Like we go to the mall and like all eyes would just turn and look at us like a couple of professional wrestlers or something. It was just ridiculous, right? So we just get off on it. We just chuckle about it all the time. But what was funny about it, Chris, was she fell in love with my creativity. She really fell in love with the guy that was, excited and happy and all those things that you do when you're in this honeymoon stage. But sex, drugs, and rock and roll only last so long. So when I got out of the industry for a short time, I lost that creativity. I lost that excitement. And even knowing now that through my training, what I've been doing in this last couple of years, I realized how to connect those dots. So what I'm getting at is that in the end, just to be straightforward, I did not cheat on my ex-wife. In fact, for 8 years of marriage, I did not cheat on her one freaking time, out on the road, doing all the shit, running around, not one. In the end, the relationship degraded. She made the move. She was the one that strayed from me. At the same time, I'm not crying a river over it. I'm just as responsible as she was for the action. I didn't look at it that way for many, many years.
I'm sure you were probably hurt and like, hey, look, I'm out there. Yeah. And basically, you were legitimately putting yourself like a worm on a hook. You could use your fishing analogy from earlier.
There you go.
And but I'm not going to let any fish bite on me. But
I was just a hook.
You're just a hook. Yeah. Like hey, listen, I'm not trying to catch any fish here, trying to catch some tips is what I'm trying to catch.
Exactly. And you know, what's ironic about that is that I used to make her feel really good because she was younger than I was. So I'd make her feel really good. Like I go out and do shows and she'd be in the back with the dancer wives and stuff. And I just like have a little skirt of money around my G-string. I just grab all my money and just shove it in her purse to make her feel good right in the middle of the show. Like I just come
here
back.
You go.
She'd be like, oh my God, I feel like $1 million, right? So we just had a lot of fun and I used to love blowing her mind and stuff. And we just had all this kind of stuff go on. But then, when the 7-year itch happens for a reason, right? And so we just kind of moved in different directions. And when that happened, when I lost that creativity, I lost that excitement. So what I'm saying is that years later, I was able to connect that dot and go, the reason why I actually had an issue with my ex was because we lost our relationship. But that creativity is one of my core values. So I was not excited anymore. I wasn't the guy that she was married to. One of my other core values is relationships. So if I am not actually connected, if I feel disconnected, then I have to go and find out which relationship is it. Is it my mom? Is it my girlfriend? Is it my freaking whatever boss? I got to figure out which one it is. And that's my way of being able to keep myself aligned. And I do that for my student, or I should say for my clients as well, because for me, it's just a way that's really, really been effective to be able to actually become a better version of myself internally, not just externally.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I think that in every facet of life, this is applicable, right? You're Absolutely. Like, it's owning your part in whatever it is, like regardless of whether you because again, to your point, I think that when things happen, whatever they are, whether it's relationship, and you mentioned just relationships, we'll throw a blanket on it. And relationships, no matter what they are, whether they're intimate relationships like the one that you have with your ex-wife, or they're relationships that you have with your coworkers, relationships that you have with people that you work with, in consulting kind of gigs or something like that, relationships that you have with people that you just interact with on a daily basis. The easiest thing in the world to do is when they do something that you don't like is to blame them. That's your first thing.
Use that finger.
Right there. You did it. And then you don't think about, okay, well, what part did I have in this until if you're lucky later, right? You don't start to connect those dots until later. And then, and again, I think that's what you maybe just found is like, well, I gotta look in the mirror here. This is not just about them. It's about me.
Oh, you want to hear the craziest shit though? This is the craziest part of that whole thing is when I started using the thumb instead of the finger, and I started going, okay, I am at least 50% accountable for this. Yeah. Then after only chatting with my ex-wife maybe 3 times in 15 years after getting divorced, and those 3 times weren't exactly a pleasant experience.
I'm sure not.
When it came down to it, I was able to connect with her again and actually go back and say, hey, being real about it, I wasn't being my authentic self. And I explained to her how I connected those dots. And bam, as soon as we were able to do that, that one layer, and that's why I called my book, Take It Off, that layer removed. It liberated me. It allowed me to actually open up and go, okay, be vulnerable, Corey. Be accepting to the fact that you screwed up just as bad. But when I did that, it made me feel a lot better as a person. And so now, for whenever my next relationship happens to come into play, I'm aware now and I'm not going to make that same mistake. Because when it comes down to it, I was living the slot machine of life before, just letting it roll without being aware. I firmly believe through my training, through authenticity coaching, for whether it be for my video courses or through one-on-one training, it is essential, absolutely essential for anybody that I work with to clarify their core values and then clarify the feelings that are connected to those core values. More importantly, to understand when you're disconnected to those feelings, when you're the opposite of it. So what I'm kind of saying is by doing that, it simply allows you to be the best version of you that you can be, but you have to be willing to go there. And a lot of people aren't willing to go there.
Yeah, they're not ready. And sometimes
you got to be ready.
And here's the other part too. This is an interesting kind of thread to pull on a little bit. So like the other part of it too, and I think this is where people get hung up, and it may be fear that leads them to this place, or it may just be their own internal ego kind of like blocking this a bit. So like people would be afraid that, okay, well, if I'm going to own something, if I'm going to be I would say keeping your side of the street clean, I'll be honest about the things that I do wrong, right? I'll be honest about like my culpability in something. The fear of the person all right, now they're like, no.
What are they going to think of me?
Yeah, or the person on the other side where you're like having if it's a dialogue between two people, relationship, them not owning their part in it. So I think the other part that you have to kind of get comfortable with is that doesn't matter. Yeah. Like you can only deal with how you react, how you feel, and if they're going to not take the responsibility of saying, yeah, I got a part in this too, and it's a big part and maybe half of the part, then it's on them.
Yeah, man, it's you can only control what you can control. You can't really, when it comes down to other people, like I said, I always try to respect other people's perspectives because I can't control people when it looks like, I can't see what they see through their lens. Now, it does help me out a lot when I can ask other people what my weaknesses and strengths are so that I can actually understand through their lens what they're seeing about me, because I can only see what I can see through my eyes, right? So I came to that realization a while ago that not everybody thinks like me. Like when it comes down to I don't speak through religious or political ideology whatsoever. I'm not here to do that because it's first off, it's totally divisive. But second off, when it comes down to it, I have an ability now, unlike my former self, to go, hey, you know what? I don't get you. I don't understand you. I disagree with what you're saying, but I really want to understand you. So let me get into that head of yours for a couple seconds. Tell me why you feel this way. I'm going to keep an open mind. Just let me understand you. I probably will still disagree with you.
Yeah, you can disagree. It's okay.
I can respect what you're saying and vice versa, right? Yeah. So that's kind
interesting.
Of my goal.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's if again, I think that we pride ourselves. We actually, for as goofy as we can be on our normal show when we're not interviewing people, doing ridiculous things like drafting the worst hairstyles of all time. That was a fun one. Cool. We also there are a lot of times where we just have to get things off our chest. It's one of the beautiful things you'll learn about having a podcast is you just can say whatever you want, you and get it off your chest. And one of the things that, because we went through a lot of stuff in the last couple of years, and there's a lot of opinions about those things. And I think that one thing that we kind of pride ourselves on here is that we can see both sides of it. We don't really we don't take sides. We can have opinions on things. But Kevin and I don't agree on everything. That's okay. Sure. But we don't agree with everything that's going on sides. And we do feel like, and I'm speaking on his behalf, like I'm his spokesperson. If he was here, he would say the same thing, I'm sure. But we don't. I like you mentioned politics and stuff like that. It's super divisive, and either if you're not all the way on one side, you're not on that side at all. It's so crazy.
Tribal. So tribal,
it's nuts. Dude. It's nuts.
So tribal. And that's the thing, right? Is I can only control what I can control in my circle. I can't control what the rest of the world's going to freaking well do. But, again, when it comes down to just respecting other people's perspectives, I've definitely gone deeply into that because I was very, like I said, seeing life through my lens and I was not always right. And so when you're talking about what the subject that you happen to be talking about, it seems like everybody wants to be right.
All the time. Yes. You're not listening to me. How could you? How dare you? And people will ruin their relationship with you over the fact that you don't agree with them on that one thing. It's
I know we
don't have to be simpatico 100% on everything. Why does it have to be an all or nothing proposition? Why can I just not disagree with you on this one thing and we still be friends?
And time's proven that none of us have really been right. And I don't really get
not 100% of the time.
There's nobody who's been right on this. So
have you ever you've changed your mind on things before, right? Everyone does. Yeah. And you're and people have, to your point, there's been times where I've had conversations with people where I felt it very, very strongly in one direction. And then after talking to them, I was like, you know what? I actually started to think about that on the other side. I could see where you're coming from here. I may change my mind on that. And that mental agility and the willingness to be able to say, I can change my mind and be okay with it. And I don't have to staunchly because I'm on the brown shirt team. You're on the blue shirt team. So if you're not wearing a brown shirt, bro, we cannot be on the same side. We have very core values on the brown shirt team.
Oh man.
And they are.
I'll give you a little chuckle story. I know we're running on time.
No, that's okay. We're good.
I'm enjoying the shit out of this conversation.
Great.
But it's funny because in the first chapter of my book, in my book, actually, it's written kind of interesting. It's different kind of dynamic because it's not just a biography, but it's a personal development book. To take it off is a metaphor. It's not just about taking the clothes off. It's about taking the layers off in your head.
Yeah. So folks, if you're hoping to see Dalton Strong's dong, probably not going to see that.
I'm going to see it in the book. No.
Let's imagine it. Use your creativity. Use your imagination. Yeah.
But the cool thing is what I did with this is I wrote the story and then I was like, man, this just isn't enough. I need to make more of an impact. So in each chapter, I felt that it was important to point out a core value that I had and a struggle that I had with that core value. So great, cute little story in my first chapter is when I was 5 years old and I didn't even really know the meaning of what authenticity even meant. And I was actually being unintentionally inauthentic. Now, what I mean by that is that I was actually, my aunt and uncle they took me to the fair, and they actually they put me on a Ferris wheel. And I got stuck at the bloody top of the Ferris wheel as a little kid.
At
and
5?
Things swing, and things swinging back and forth. I'm freaking the hell out and crying my eyes out and everything. It really affected me, man. Like it made me actually, like, through a lot of years of my life, I didn't do like the high, I guess you could say, like the adrenaline sports that were really heights wise, like I was kind of freaked out heights, right? Yeah. So years go by, man. I'm talking like a lot of years. And I went to my aunt and I said, why in the hell would you and my uncle have put me on this Ferris wheel at 5 years old? Like, that was pretty freaking harsh, right?
Right.
And she turned around, she said to me, she started laughing, and she's like, Corey, we were at the mall. We put a quarter in the little thing, and it was about 7 feet tall. You were just sitting at the top of that thing, crying like a little bitch. And when I
just felt like you were on the top of a mountain somewhere. That's amazing. Right?
So but here's the thing. Like, I ask a lot of podcast hosts this when I say this story. Like, when you go back to your elementary school, right? Like, what's the first thing you notice as an adult if you go back to your elementary school?
Oh, how small everything is. How tiny
the desks are, the halls are shorter.
It's the old scene. If you're old enough to remember this movie, if you remember Uncle Buck when he goes and he has to kneel down to use the urinal because he's so big.
I still love the scene when he's doing the laundry and he's like, I'm gonna throw a load into you. I was just like, oh, that's the best. But no, but I will say that is one of the interesting dynamics with the story is that when I was an adult and I went back to my elementary school, I saw everything as smaller, but when I was a little kid and I was looking at that Ferris wheel, even though it was actually a little piss-ass one in the mall, I saw it as far larger, right?
Yes.
So my own brain, like my own mind, really perceived that to be something different than the actual truth. And so we're all susceptible to that in our own way. So that's why I keep a kind of an open mind. It's just based off of that one little story, but I keep an open mind as far as my perspective as an adult. I'm not always right. We don't always have to be right.
So, no,
I don't have an answer for everybody's freaking problems out there at all, right? But I do have a heavy drive to help out guys that struggle with that lack, because it's something that I've really dealt with a lot in my life. And I will say this, man, from somebody that was raised in a depression era family that had a lot of that lack embedded into their head, right? It does pass down. And even myself, 2 years ago, I was in the Philippines. I went there for a month. I went to Boracay, like the most beautiful island, one of the most beautiful islands in the freaking world. I'm walking down the beach and I still had that sense of lack inside of me saying the what ifs, the what ifs, the what ifs inside my head, ruining an amazing moment that I should have been living in the freaking now, appreciating the present for what it was. But here I was fucking it up and going, oh, I need to be worried about my future right now and thinking about the money in a negative way, right? So what are we doing it all for? Like, that's what it kind of comes down to. Well,
life is short, right? Life is short. And I think people they get so like wrapped up in, like you said, the what's going to happen next. Yeah. And I got a daughter and she's in the other room right now. Hopefully she can't hear me. It doesn't matter. She is absolutely this is not a lie. I swear to you on my life. She has a birthday coming up. It's going to be in a week and a few days.
Okay.
This has happened last year and it's happened several years before that. And it's been consistent every single year. The second her birthday's done, she's like, okay, what about my next birthday?
Yeah, right.
Like, that's all she's thinking about. She's not thinking about like how great this was. Oh, we had this wonderful cake and this party and these people over and these presents and all this stuff. It's like, okay, what's next? What's next?
It's about as bad as the news with elections.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's rough, dude. It's like, oh, come on. Like, can we just enjoy this?
No doubt.
Like, savor it for a minute. Like, it's, true. It's like if you swallowed a steak whole, like I swallowed an entire tomahawk and I didn't taste a bite of it. I'm just wondering what's next. Where's my dessert? Where's my creme brulee?
Your colon's probably screaming over it.
Oh. Yeah. Oh yeah. You know it. So I just have curiosity on the because you've got the book. You said that you've got this gig. So you're are you doing any kind of, because this book's been out for a little bit now, right? So you 2021, right? It went out.
Yeah, it launched on January the 18th. Hit the bestseller list and all that, which was really cool.
Congratulations.
And it's doing good in Amazon and stuff like that. But really, again, though, Chris, the book's one thing and it's cool. I'm really proud of it. In fact, it's probably one of the most, I guess you could say one of the most things that I'm most proud of in this lifetime of mine, because it really does mean a lot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's just the launch pad, man. Because like for me now, like where I'm really hungry to be able to really use my creativity now is not on the exterior anymore. Like I really want to use my creativity to be able to go into an industry that quite frankly has been really regurgitated a lot of the same information over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And it's really in a lot of ways based off of, there's a lot of, I guess you could say, public speakers or people in the influencer realm or whatever that really base a lot of their speaking off of religious ideology, which I don't do.
Yeah, sure.
I don't go there because it's not even that I have any disrespect. It's more so just because that's not the lens I see it through. Right. So for me, I decided, hey, now, I know this sounds a little creepy, especially based off my former industry, but I'm like, okay, I have this book here. Mm-hmm. What I want you to do is like read into this, and I'm going to show you mine in the book. And I want you to show me yours. So basically, I get my clients to go through my facilitation. They go through my video course, and I actually have them cross-reference my book. I want them to look at the reflection that I have on my own life and say, hey, man, go to a certain core value in your life that you struggled with that's relatable to what I did and write that down. Actually put that on paper and actually address that yourself, because I can't, like I said, everybody's a snowflake in this world when it comes down to that shit, right? We're all different. So I can't really say this is what you need to do, but I can gently guide that person in the right direction without telling them what to do. And to me, leading by example and walking that walk ahead of time gives me the experience and the ability to do that and not necessarily have to say I'm an expert per se, but say, hey, I'm willing to walk that walk. If you're willing to walk it too, you can come be liberated like me. Because awesome. I have been liberated from that bullshit from my past because I connected those dots, and it made a massive difference to me. And I got to give massive kudos to my editor, my publisher, Daring to Share Global out in Ontario. Like if it hadn't have been that I connected with that particular company, who I actually do subcontract with now and help other writers out to write more authentically. If I hadn't have actually done that, I would have just wrote what I wrote as far as the story goes, and it might have been okay, but it didn't really have that same type of, I guess you could say, like I didn't really have that same meaning to it. It just didn't. You're having
impact. You're having a positive impact on people, and that's the important thing. Like that's like to be able to do this for other people and to realize that that's what you're talking about is really a gift. Like it's a gift to be able to kind of get to that stage, because you felt the benefits of that gift. You continue to feel the benefits of that gift, and now you want to share that with other people.
Yeah, and pardon the pun, but it takes balls, man. It does. It takes balls to be able to actually go and say, okay, look, this was the reality of a situation where a person in my life was a bad apple. So I had to change the wording around and go, but a bad apple with good intent.
Right.
And admit that I was also a bad apple with good intent as well. So I'm not sitting there pointing the finger and going, you were an asshole for whatever you did.
Right.
I accepted that. I brought that into my circle as well. So in my own way, I have to be accountable for that as well.
Right. It's not so to your point on the religion thing. And I think this is a good thing to kind of take away from it as well, is like, and it's again, using somewhat of a pun, it's preachy, right? It's specifically preachy, right? And so someone who is now elevating themselves and saying, I'm above you, and I'm going to tell you what all the things that you're doing wrong. And it's like, okay, but wouldn't I benefit from somebody who's walked in the same shoes as me and 100%. Has felt the same things and felt the same way as me? When I get more out of that than feel as though somebody is maybe talking down to me a little bit, or, making me feel less than.
And I did that myself to people. I looked up and down at them at their pedestal, right? Or on their pedestal. And when it came down to it, that was wrong. Like it was like, it's so wrong in so many ways. And I jokingly say this, Chris, if it was like to take 3 movies from the past that represented my life, it would be like Magic Mike, Forrest Gump, and frickin' Joe Dirt. You throw all 3 of those bad boys together and you pretty much got what I actually was doing there for a while. It's just as crazy as it is, though. I went on a walk just like old Forrest did, especially after my divorce, trying to figure out that long walk. Now, I didn't go across the country 10 times, but I did actually have a lot of thoughts in my head that really, I really used a lot of energy up that was really negative, and really trying to be Mr. Fix-It and say, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And it's like, you know what, man, maybe you didn't do that much wrong. You just needed to take some accountability for the shit that you did do and be aware of it.
It's learning to forgive yourself.
It's a 2-way street, man. It takes 2 to tango, right? So, but when I did that, actually, what was really cool about that was that relationship with my ex-wife, who we didn't really have a relationship after we split. Mm-hmm. Now we actually have a better relationship, and she found her through true authenticity after I actually connected those dots. So she actually became a better version of herself just based off of looking at me as a role model. And I can't ask for anything more than that. I look at that like that is glory for me, because I did not want her, as somebody that actually I slept next to for that many years. I didn't want her to carry around that shit for the rest of her life either, right? Like I want her to have a good life and enjoy it to the best of her ability, just like anybody that I work with, really.
Damn right. Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Look, it's let me just really quick get the website out. You are at Corey Laine Hilton. Now, my listeners are, and this is not an indictment, folks, so don't get mad. You're kind of dumb. So I'm going to spell it for you. CoreyLaine Hilton, like Paris.com. CoreyLaineHilton.com. You can get his book there. You can get his book pretty much anywhere. Amazon, Google books. You can get it, I'm sure, on Apple. You can get it everywhere. Go there, check it out, take it off. Look, one of the things that we promise on this show is that we give you interesting people, and God damn it, if you're not interesting. We really do appreciate it. And we'll definitely, I'm sure that Kevin has lots of questions.
Let's do I'll
do it again.
Do it again, no problem. And I'll even throw this out for your listeners. Actually,
sure, bring it. Let's go.
The coaching program doesn't start till April the 1st, but it'll give you the 20% discount on not only the book, but the coaching program for your listeners.
Look at that.
To do is go to, now it's all small caps. You go to my website. You can go to CoreyLaineHilton.com or take it off.ca. It'll take you to the exact same place.
You
That'll make it a little easier.
CA is in Canada.
Okay. For Canada.
Take it off.ca. So what the beautiful thing about this is, because this isn't going out live, I'm gonna have graphics on it. I'll have the website on the bottom. So even though I just called my listeners dumb, I'm dumb because I'm actually going to put the website down there and you already saw it. So I'm the asshole.
Well, I'll give them the code. The code.
Go ahead. What's the code?
When they get to the checkout, all they have to do is just put in DIGCODE, dig code. You put that in small caps, you'll get the 20% discount on the book or the course, whatever you so choose. And awesome. It kind of does help out with a little bit of that, I guess you could say, cost for shipping of the book. But if it's something that you do want a signed copy, go to my website, use that discount. If you don't, you're probably better off just to go ahead and order it through Amazon to save your ass on the shipping, because the shipping is ridiculous from Canada.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very expensive. And I got to be honest, when you started saying the code and you said DI, I'm like, oh
no.
I just kid. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Go get his book. Go get his coaching. Great guy. Awesome story. Corey, thank you for joining Digging the Dome today.
This is the best, man. I really appreciate your time.